Hello, everyone. Today we're joined by an awesome guest, Alvin Lui. Courage is a habit. What's up, man? Welcome to the podcast.
Man, I'm so happy to be here. You and I have been talking about this for months.
Yeah,
Can't
it's
make your
finally
schedule work.
happening.
It's finally happening. What a miracle. We just like yesterday, we're like, hey, I could do it tomorrow. Can you do it
Yeah,
tomorrow? Boom. That's how we, it's like 12-hour
I know.
notice.
Yeah, it worked out. We're both allies in this crazy battle against kids right now. And I
Yeah.
just appreciate you
Yeah.
so much and what you do.
Thank you. I appreciate you. I mean, I've always said, uh, on record, off record, that we need more fathers and men like you. And if we had more people like you, and I'm assuming everybody that's listening to you now knows your story, of course. If we had more fathers and men like you, uh, honestly, courage as a habit wouldn't be needed. There'll be a lot of people wouldn't be needed. We'd all just be living our lives, and nobody would know about us at all.
Yeah,
But I
well,
think
we
because
need
there isn't.
more courage. That's why I love the name you chose. It's a perfect name. I think being brave is the most important virtue there is. And yeah, totally need more men, more dads standing up. I'm starting to see some, get upset and speak at school boards or media
Yep.
outlets
Mhm.
over the women,
Yep.
the guys taking over their daughters' sports and stuff. And
Right.
I'm stoked to see that. But we need like everyone. If we all just said what we believe, which is 90% plus of America, that no
Mhm.
kids should be mutilated, no guys
Yeah.
should be taking girls' sports, trophies, etc., this would end. But most people don't want to get canceled, scared of looking not compassionate, whatever it is, and it's a travesty, honestly.
It is. And so one of the things courage as a habit does, uh, we we ensure that good parents and Americans understand that their empathy is being weaponized. Their kindness is being weaponized. They're being whipped with their own kindness, and mental health and all these great sounding things it's the Trojan horse that's brought in all the stuff that we see in schools, all the queer theory, critical race theory. It's being delivered under the banner of empathy. And, we often say that this country doesn't have an oppression problem, it has an idiot empathy problem. And it's carried
Yeah, I
out
think
by,
that's exactly right.
mostly very, very stupid, woke white mothers, very weak males. I wouldn't call them men. They're just these sniveling, cowardly males that they can't stand by their words. They never stand by what they believe in. They're always moving the goalposts. They're always lying and gaslighting and false equivalency and emotional blackmail. And so we try to teach parents how to not fall for those things. And I'll give you one thing that we teach parents right off the bat that is extremely important. And hopefully this, if your audience remembers nothing else, for the first 5 minutes, I can give them something. And one of the concepts that we teach parents is, we always say children are being brainwashed. We obviously say that, which is true, but parents are being brainwashed first, because if you don't brainwash parents, then they'll naturally know how to stand up for their children. So the idea that a parent don't know what to do when their children are being indoctrinated is actually a weird thing to say. Of course you know what to do. Of course you know what to do. You're a parent. You naturally have instincts on how to protect your kids. What parents mean is, it's not that I don't know what to do, is how do I protect my kids without looking like a bigot transphobe? That's what they really mean. That's what they really mean. Nobody doesn't know. Like if your child or grandchild is in a burning building, you don't go, you know what? Let me go on a podcast and download a tool and a white paper to find out what do I got to do. If someone breaks into your house, you don't say, let me see what I want to do. If someone grabs your child at a department store, if someone walks up to your child and show them a book full of the same pornography that they're showing in schools, you don't stop and say, I don't know what to do. Let me just wait 2 weeks and go to an event and find out what to do. So what makes school so special? What makes a government entity called school, or what makes a transgender cult so special, And this is the one concept that I want to teach parents, and hopefully your audience gets something out of this, is what we call language contamination. And language contamination is the easy thing to remember, is that they use your vocabulary, but not your dictionary. They use your vocabulary, but not your dictionary. So when they say, don't you want your kids to learn empathy? Good people, like 99% of parents, will go, yes, of course. Don't you want kids to feel like they belong? Don't you want more anti-bullying programs? Who's going to say no to that? But remember, they use your vocabulary, but not your dictionary. And so what we want parents, every time someone says, it's just about empathy, it's just about compassion, don't you want X for your kids? Don't you want other kids to feel X? I want everybody listening to ask themselves one question: through whose lens? Through whose lens is that trait being delivered? So when we say, don't you want anti-bullying? Don't you want to teach kids not to bully? Instead of saying yes, I want you to ask them this question: what message do you have to girls and women who do not want mentally ill men in their private spaces, sports, spas, shelters, women's prisons, locker rooms? What message do you have for those women? Now, an honest person that really believes what they're saying in terms of bullying and the way we all know it will answer that question quick. A dishonest person can't answer that question. They'll dance and they'll weasel and they'll do all these emotional blackmail. What's it to you? Why is it your business? Trans people never hurt anybody. Why do you care? Because they're dishonest. It's like empathy. If someone goes, I have empathy and compassion, my first question to them is, what do you have to say to the mother of the 4-year-old that got killed by an illegal alien? What do you have to say to the family of the mother and the daughter that got murdered by an illegal alien? What words do you have for that family? Oh, when you ask them that empathy and compassion goes away real fast. So hopefully that, that's the thing that we try to teach parents is, remember, they're very dishonest. They have no, there's nothing they're very disingenuous. There's nothing genuine when they call you these things. So don't worry about it. Don't trip all over yourself trying to prove you're not a bigot or a transphobe or that you don't have empathy. Your answer should be, I don't care. You don't have any empathy. Not for you. I don't care. And that is the attitude that a lot more Americans, a lot more parents need.
Yeah, I think that's extremely intelligent way of dealing with it for sure. As opposed to playing into their game and trying to defend yourself, you go on the offense. You don't just sit back and play defensive. Why? You're not a bad person.
Yeah, don't do the whole my cousin's gay and I love him. My best friend's black. And don't do that. Yeah. That's that kind of natural. That's a natural knee-jerk reaction of very good people. And you cannot use that tactic against people that are operating in bad faith 100%.
Right.
It only works if the other party is genuine in what they're saying. Honest, like if you and I got into an argument and you said, Alvin, you said this, it hurt my feelings. I think you're being rude. I think you're doing this. If we were having a genuine argument because we're friends, then I can start defending myself. No, I wasn't being rude. You caught me on this day. I'm not doing this. I would never do this. And then you might go, you know what? Maybe I just caught him on a bad day, or maybe the way he said it, he didn't mean it. And it's okay because you and I are having a disagreement as friends in good faith. But if you were trying to gaslight me and you were trying to get me to an agenda, as soon as I start backtracking and go, you know what, I didn't mean that, Harrison, no, I just had a bad day, you would take that and weaponize it against me. You wouldn't take that as you know what, he said that, but he didn't really mean it, or he just said it wrong, or I just caught him at a bad moment. So we all try to apply these defenses to try to show that we're not hateful and we're not a bigot, but you can't apply it to these people. These people want to mutilate and sterilize children before they can get their driver's license. And they want to separate them from their parents. So you can't use good faith tactics with bad faith people because they're always operating on language contamination.
Yeah, that sounds really accurate. I'm curious though what you think these bad faith people Do you think most of these teachers, counselors, etc., are actually have bad intentions, or do you think that they actually believe that they're doing good? They're, true believers, and they think they're actually doing the right thing? Because I assume, not that all great evil has been done in the name of good, but
Yeah,
obviously all the biggest atrocities, etc. But
sure.
I assume that some of these people are just unfortunately brainwashed, and they're not actually thinking they're doing the wrong thing by tricking these parents, taking these kids,
Mm.
transing them, etc. They actually, probably most of them, think they're doing something good, right? Or no?
Well, that's a great question because we get asked that a lot. Like, how
Yeah,
many people versus the evil versus the stupid? And the short answer is I don't care. I don't.
agree.
I treat them all the same.
Right.
Because if you're an adult and you can look at a child and you're around children and you can look at a little girl and say they're born in the wrong body, they're really a boy. You're you're quite literally too stupid to be around kids. You're too stupid and weak to be around children. So I don't really care if your heart's in the right place or if you're just evil because people with idiot empathy and just intelligently really low IQ, really stupid, like really stupid and really high empathy are like the worst kind of people because you can fool them into any atrocity. Now, are they evil? No, not by that definition. Or, you've got people like, even in W Path, right? Even in W Path, you had people that were like, you know what? I don't think this is a good idea, but they went along with it anyway, right?
Yep.
So some people are actually straight up evil. They know what they're doing and they know it sets up kids for sex trafficking. It sets them for abuse, prostitution, drugs, all kinds of stuff. But when it comes down to it, what difference does it make? If you're stupid with idiot empathy or you're straight up evil, the results are the same. The results are the same. You are still destroying these kids' lives and then saying parents are unsafe and abusive. So my short answer is I don't care. I treat them the same. But the long answer is there are probably much more of the stupid idiot empathy people than there are the evil people because it doesn't take a lot of evil people to spread the message. And so when you're talking about, let's say, like the school counselors and the teachers, the way they're all trained, so obviously there's good teachers with that just wants to be teacher and good counselors, but it doesn't matter because the system that they're trained under ensures that their environment makes them conform. So even if you're a counselor that goes, I don't believe in any of this, I don't believe in any of this, it doesn't matter because either you're going to get bullied and doxxed until you quit by the other ideologues, or you're just going to stay silent and just hope for the best. So
Yeah. I mean,
like the American School Counselor Association, the teachers unions, all the principal association, superintendent association, the social workers association, every ecosystem in government K through 12 is captured by the transgender cult. The librarians, right? The American Library Association, all of them. So it doesn't really matter if you've got individuals, if they can't lead the system and help speak up like a lot of people have, and I'm sure you know all of them. A lot of some therapists, like the truthful therapist, like Pamela, and a lot
she's
of
great.
these, not a lot, she's great. I mean, there's a small handful of people that have broken away from their industry. Obviously, they've had to fight and suffer for that. They know that their industry's captured. So unless you break away from that, if you're still in it and you still are just continuing on, I guess at this point, when you see the detransitioners, you've seen what's happened to with the surgeries and the cross-sex hormones. Even if you don't get to the surgeries, you just get the cross-sex hormones and then the puberty blockers followed by cross-sex hormones. If you're still staying silent and you're around kids and you're just part of that system, yeah, I don't have a lot of I don't have a lot of what do you call it? When you have a
Sympathy.
it's not even sympathy, is where you give them a benefit of the doubt. Yeah, that's
benefit
what
of
I
the
was
doubt.
thinking.
Okay.
I don't have a lot of benefit of the doubt. It's like, okay, so maybe your heart's in the right place, but it doesn't matter. Not when it comes to this. We're not discussing like tax reform, or something like that, right? Where you're
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I didn't realize that if we passed this tax law, it was going to make things worse. Or I didn't realize if I kept pushing for affordable housing, that it was going to bring the low quality dregs of people in my city. And geez, now my city is not as nice as it used to be. Those slow burning things that people have good intentions and they go, oh, I didn't know that. If we just kept, having, affordable housing, it kept lowering that people are going to come in from the city and ruin my nice city. Yeah, you got a little nuance in there. But when it comes to like mutilating, sterilizing kids, we all treat them the same. There's no benefit of the doubt. Not when it comes to education. You've got these kids 7 hours a day, 5 days a week for 13 years. If you're too stupid not to understand there's no such thing as a trans child, yeah, we're going to treat you all the same. And that's how Courage is a Habit approaches it.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, obviously we got to judge by actions, not words, and by results, not intentions. It doesn't matter at the end of the day what your intentions were. If the result is kids being medically mutilated, sterilized, etc., girls being, having their trophies taken from them, like in California state championships right now, it's out of
All of
hand.
them.
Yeah,
I mean, like, so you're seeing this, right? You're seeing, if you're a teacher or a counselor or anybody around kids, the sacrifice it takes to be an athlete, from not just the child, but from the parents and from the siblings. The whole family
a lot.
is involved. Everyone wakes up at, right? So a parent has to wake up at 3 a.m. or, 5 a.m. to go take the child to practice. There's a lot of money. Oftentimes you give up holidays and weekends to travel for these meets, and so you do all this. Your family sacrifices for those girl or girls. And then when she's 19 and 20, a guy who ranks 243 gets to take her place and blows her record out of the water. And you as an adult don't look at that and just go, well, I don't know. My heart's in the right place. You know what I mean? If you're that way,
it's insane.
Then don't be around kids. Don't be around kids. Go like dig a ditch or something, right? Because you're too stupid to be around kids, and you can't afford to be stupid when you're around innocent beings that this impacts their whole life. If you're a stupid developer, you just get fired, right? You write a bad line of code, the company can't train you enough, and your code is so bad that everyone has to fix your code, and your QA testers are always, then they'll fire you. That's it, right?
Yeah.
There's no you're like, Jesus, I'm glad I got rid of that guy. Or if you're in construction, right? If every time you do something and it's just crap and everyone has to we got to dig that cement, we got to dig that foundation back up because Bob over here, right?
Not fun.
Then, right.
Redoing stuff's the worst.
No, right. And then if you have to do it enough, then Bob's gone.
Yeah.
Because he's too stupid to understand, you never learn, right? But when you're around kids, you don't just get to dig up and then redo it. Once you brainwash them that way, this isn't a line of code that you can rewrite. This isn't a foundation you can just dig up and re-pour the cement. It doesn't work like that when you're around innocent children. They absorb everything, good, bad, or indifferent. So because we've seen these very high empathy, low IQ people. Like I said, we don't go, well, we're going to treat them a little differently because they're actually not evil. These people are evil right here, right? These people are real evil. At the end of the day, it's kind of indistinguishable. The practical results of it is indistinguishable. It's kind of like if I drink and drive and I kill somebody and another criminal leads the police on a chase because he robbed a bank or he's wanted for murder. Yeah, I mean, I suppose the judge might look at that a little differently because he's a criminal running and I drink and drive for the first time and I killed somebody. But to that family, though, what difference does it make?
None.
Right? If that family doesn't like that family, if you drink and drive and you kill someone, you take someone's mother or father or child, are you going to go to that family and say, well, my heart was in the right place. I didn't mean to drink and drive. And the other guy goes, I'm a criminal and I led a police on a chase. I suppose, like, philosophically, that's a difference. But practically, what difference does it make to that family? You know, they still want me.
Yeah, exactly.
They still want to see me in prison just as much as they still want the criminal in prison. Because at the end of the day, we're both criminals. That's how I look at it. The results are the same.
Yeah, that is what matters at the end of the day. I got a couple follow-ups onto all of that. So first of all, you said woke white women generally perpetuate this. I'm curious if you have any answers as to why that is. And then you said weak men generally in society aren't standing up and speaking up. Curious why you think that is. And then I'm also pretty interested in why you chose the name Courage is a Habit.
Those are three great questions. This is like the whole podcast right there, those three questions. So in your show notes, we have a tool called Why White Kids. And I'll make sure I send that to you for your show notes.
I'm guilty, I guess. I don't know. I was one of those.
No. The title of the tool is called Why White Kids. And statistically speaking, white kids, particularly girls, but white children are the highest percentage of obtaining the surgeries and the drugs and everything. Followed by a far second, the Hispanic community, but quite a far second, actually.
Interesting.
So your question is why the woke white women? Why is it that they are the biggest purveyors of the transgender cult? Is always the woke white women, where there's counselors, teachers, mothers. Why is that? Not to say fathers haven't done that. We've seen that, but I'm just talking about percentage, right? The percentage.
It's a lot more rare.
It's a lot more rare, right? So like, I don't know, call it 80-20, 85-15, whatever. So in Why White Kids, our tool, we explain that queer theory and critical race theory are basically just two sides of the same coin. They use the same tactics. They use the same, struggle sessions and all those different things. But the reason why white kids are more susceptible to the transgender cult is you have to start with critical race theory in schools and in culture. And critical race theory at its most basic core is basically just very anti-white. It says, if you're white, you're a piece of shit. Nothing you say matters. White man, white this, right? And so we often, people say white guilt. You should have white guilt, right? This is a big white guilt. We really try not to say white guilt because it's actually a misnomer. It's actually not white guilt. It's white shame. See, guilt is you do something wrong and you feel guilty about that. Shame is you feel shame about who you are. Guilt is you feel bad about what you've done, the one thing you've done. Shame is about feeling bad about who you are. So critical race theory isn't about white guilt, it's about white shame. And so you've got these white kids who, ever since they can remember, in school, in media, in culture, it's anti-white, anti-white, anti-white. Marginalized people, you're an oppressor, you're stupid, you're white supremacy, you're white privilege, you didn't earn anything, everything comes easy to you, America's white supremacy, you're white, you suck, you're a piece of crap, right? And oftentimes these mothers in college, and you'll look, that is the college-educated women that are the biggest purveyors of the transgender cult, because college already has been pushing this long before K through 12. So oftentimes these kids are hearing this, not just in culture and in schools, but from their own mother. They hear their own mother beating on themselves and white people. Think about how that feels as a child when your own mother is pushing that white shame. So by the time a child reaches middle school, they know instinctively, it's been driven into them, that they are on the low, like the bottom of the barrel in social value. They have no problems. They're just oppressors. Nothing they say matters because you're white. So these kids know that they have zero social value. They know they can't change their skin color. So they can't be black and brown because that's the pedestal that woke culture puts people in. You're a black, fat woman who's in a wheelchair, right? So, but they do discover, though, in schools because of the school counselors and social emotional learning and all that mental health nonsense, that if they say these magic words, that they will be transported to a whole different social arena. And that those magic words are I identify as insert whatever, those 4 words. Instantly when they say that, they get sucked into the transgender cult. Now, everything they say matters. They're protected. Nobody can criticize them for anything. Then there's stunning and brave. Then the love bombing, which is what obviously a lot of cults, most cults have the love bombing. So what happens to these white kids is they get this hit of dopamine that they've never had before in their whole life because they've never experienced any social value. So they go from the very bottom of the social ladder to the very top of the social ladder. But the problem is the dopamine hit wears off and you have to then go to the next stage. Then you got the name change. Then you got the clothing change. Then you got to do the drugs. Then you got to keep going. You got to do the blocker or the binders and the tucking. And then you got to do all those things. Because every time you do it, you're stunning and brave. And you're oppressed. So you go from oppressor to oppressed immediately. You're still white, but now all of a sudden you're oppressed and you're being genocide. And you're being compared to black slaves and every atrocity in the world. And, you're being genocide. And now your life is at danger. Your life is always in danger. Someone's trying to kill you. And, the victimhood feels so damn good. The victimhood's just like a warm blanket, right? Never ends, the victimhood. So this is why. And very few people have really connected that fact that critical race theory has set up these white kids to be this way. And if for those of you who thinks they don't believe me, I have a challenge. Find me a picture of a Filipino, Japanese, South African, Black, Chinese, Korean mother standing by their daughter who just had a double mastectomy and smiling ear to ear. Find me that photo. You won't find it. Every photo you see of a daughter or a son that got the surgeries and they look all fucked up is always next to the white mother. Not to say it doesn't happen, but nobody's been able to find me that photo. And so it shows you that we've set up these kids to feel like they are the bottom of the barrel. And man, the transgender cult comes along, and man, it feels so good. It feels great. And these white mothers who've been into college, they've been so brainwashed too, because they've been told you need to listen to black women. You need to shut up and listen to black people. Not like Tom the Soul, certain black people, right? Not Ben Carson. No, not him. No, not him. That's why the white insufferable woke white mothers and then the white kids, that's why you see such a large percentage of them that goes down that path. And then as far as the fathers go, exact same thing.
You explain it so well, man. I feel like you explain it better than anyone I know. Like the white shame. Yeah, going from oppressor to oppressed, and just it's phenomenal, man. Yeah, keep going. It's great.
It's like, what? It's like the closest thing anybody will ever experience is either you win the lottery, right? You win the lottery. One day you're like making ends meet, next day, like 60 million, or the ball players that go from poverty and then they get drafted. So one day they're living, with their 5 brothers and sisters with a single mom and then the next day they've got a $10 million bonus, right?
What's interesting you say that, because I know someone who I used to work construction with who won the lottery, only $1 million, but that's a lot. Don't get me wrong. And yeah. I'd say that his life went downhill because of that pretty significantly, which was interesting, which similarly to this, life goes downhill.
Well, this is statistically, I don't know what the statistic is, but people win the lottery, follow 5 years, 7 years, they're actually worse than what they were before. It's because it's just a truism in life that you can't hold on to something you didn't earn. That's it. And so whether it's lottery, and this is why a lot of ball players, they go poor they go bankrupt when they're done playing. right? Even though I know the NFL and the NBA try to, because it's not good for their brand to see all these bankrupt ex-players, right? So they try to put in like financial lessons and or classes and set them up with financial advisors and things like that. So I know they've done that in the last 10 years. But whether it's a NFL contract or lottery or social value, if you didn't earn it, it will only screw you up. And that's why the cult does these artificial love bombings. It's artificial. Everything's artificial because you didn't earn it. As far as the weak males, the cucks, these cowards, and the ones that, in fact, this week, and well, depending on when you release this, but we've got a full week of exposing a few of them because we love the guys. We love exposing these men because what grown man, even if you don't have kids, like before I had kids, the idea of someone hurting kids, should be grotesque to you as a man, whether you have kids or not. The fact that these grown men work so hard to gaslight women, all while talking about women's rights, of course, it's just pathetic. And your question was, why do I think, or why are they like that? It's kind of the same thing. The same thing is that they have no self-worth, no self-esteem. They have no success. They're not usually, most of them, if not all of them, are losers in life, like legitimately losers in life. And so they want to glom on to anything that gives them a self-righteousness. And so they want to be, it's these white, again, a lot of them are these cucks, these guys who are just full of white shame, and they just can't wait to stand up for everything that's destructive to this country. They'll stand up for illegal aliens, violent illegal aliens, gang members. They want to put men in women's locker rooms and prisons and spas and things. And they just want to belong to something that gives them power because they have none. You'll never find a successful man that has his life together that's going to really stand up for this. But it's these losers, it's these pathetic cucks, these cowards that just want to belong to something so that they can wag their finger and gaslight and false equivalency and judge people. It gives them a power. So they get a dopamine hit from it too, because again, they have none because they're just losers in life. You never, very, very rarely do you see a man who has his life together, who's successful, who's just, everybody fails, right? We all fail more than we succeed, but who's genuinely has moved up in his life, stand up for this and just work so hard to try to gaslight parents and people who want closed borders and want mentally ill men out of things and out of the sports and out of the locker rooms and things. So it's the same thing. It comes from a place of shame. It comes from a place of weakness. It comes from a place of they hate themselves, and that's what critical race theory does. It teaches white people to hate themselves. So it's the same thing, because no normal person would support this.
Yeah, and yet here we are. Even if it's a 90-10 issue, it's somehow the people in positions of power, are pushing this pretty hard. I'm curious, well, I'd still love to know about why you chose your name, but what you think about Trump's executive orders, and if you think there's any way we can actually federally stop this. Maybe I think Marjorie Taylor Greene's putting out a Protect Children's Innocence bill. And, there's the craziness in Colorado. I'm sure you saw that. I was curious.
Yeah, HB 1312.
Yeah, that's probably the worst bill I've ever seen. But Marjorie Taylor Greene's is probably the best bill I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say that first of all, all his executive orders when it comes to K through 12 and the transgender cult and the DEI is very well written. It's very well written because it tries to close all the gray areas. And in the past, we've seen people try to do something similar in states, and there's a lot of holes. So his executive orders are great. First of all, let me just say that the federal bills, Marjorie's bill and stuff, it's good. We cannot stop this at the federal level. The federal level, having this at the federal level is very helpful because it takes the federal government off our heads. Because up until Trump got elected, organizations like mine, like Courage is a Habit, we were fighting it from the top down and the bottom up and side to side. The bottom up is all the ecosystem in education, all the teachers, counselors, principals, school board members, superintendents. So that's the bottom up. Then we've got the Biden-Harris administration labeling parents domestic terrorists. You've got all the federal funding and all the grants pushing down on us. That's so bottom up, top down, and then side to side is the media, the social media, Hollywood, culture, And so that's a tough fight. Now we don't have this, so now we got a little help here. And so my organization, so myself, my co-founder, Jennifer McWilliams, and I recorded this maybe about a month before the election. So we had no idea he was going to win or not. And we had predicted that if he got in and he did even half of what he was going to, that he said, which he actually is doing most of what he said in terms of the fighting the transgenderism against children, we predicted and said the only thing that concerned us is everyone's going to say Trump's going to fix it. Why is this still happening? I thought Trump fixed it. And so there is because our education system has been already so crap, even before all the social emotional learning in the way you and I know it the last 10 years, even before that, no one understands the Constitution. Nobody understands their rights. So we've got good people that don't understand. So there's two things here. The executive orders, people think that's law. That's not law. So when people say, I thought Trump fixed this, why still a problem in schools? That was the first thing. So they stop working with they don't work locally to say, we got to pass his executive orders got to turn into law. Now we got some teeth. So that didn't happen. Not really, right? And we got a lot of weak Republicans, of course. This is why we're partially one of the big reasons why we're here. You got really the Republican Party. Just because Trump won and you got people like Elon in there doesn't mean the Republican Party isn't weak, because they are. And then you've got people who got Trump in there and just said, we won, we did our duty. So no, nothing that Trump is going to do, nothing that, Marjorie Taylor Greene or anybody else is going to stop this. It has to be stopped at the culture level, at the parental level, at the individual level. And here's my acid test. If you walk into a restaurant and someone has a pronoun or a name and you know that person's a boy, but she's pretending to be a girl, do you have the guts to call him a boy? Obviously, or a girl. Is obviously a girl trying to be a boy, go, no, my name's Tim. And it's like, you're not Tim. I'm not going to call you Tim. I'm not going to call you a he. You're a she. If you don't have the guts to do that and you're like, I'm just going to pretend it's a girl, but Trump's going to fix it. I'll wait for Trump to fix it. If you do that, then nothing's going to change. You squandered the 4 years. That's it. He'll be in the 4 years. Nothing's going to change. And that's what we said in that video. That's what we're going to say, so I'll give you that video. And it's what we predicted. And a lot of that is unfortunately happening because you can't have the federal government cannot and should not be able to fix this. If Trump can fix it, it means the next time a Democrat steals the election, they can put it back in. That's the thing that drives us crazy. If you think Trump can get it out of schools at the local level, that means another president can put it back in schools. Education, K through 12, should not be a political football. 15, 18, 20 years ago, when a president changes hands, whether it's Republican, Democrat, Democrat, Republican, when you're in the schools, the only thing you heard about it is in, it used to be civics or social studies or history or whatever. That teacher would go, we had an election last night. Now it went from this person to this person, right? Democrat, Republican, Republican, Democrat. And that's it. Nothing changes in your schools. That's the way it should be. Whoever's sitting in the presidency should not impact our K through 12. It should be completely transparent. Nothing should change. But today that's not true. You got these teachers coming in, shaking and crying, and oh my God, they're going to take my kids and deport my kids, and Trump's killing everybody, and this country is, this country is going to kill marginalized people and trans kids. These teachers and school counselors and principals have brought this into children's classrooms. But it shouldn't be that way. And so long as it's this way, the transgender ideology and the transgender cult will not end in K through 12 until parents are willing to say, I'm rejecting inclusive language. I don't care if it hurts your feelings. I will not abide by pronouns. My child will not abide by it until you can fight the language, because it always starts with language, like we said at the beginning of the episode. It's language contamination. It's weaponizing your empathy. It's weaponizing your kindness. If you cannot say, I don't care if it's going to hurt your feelings. I don't care if you feel unseen and unheard. If you can't say that, you could have Trump in office for 100 years and pass 100 executive orders. It will not get it out of your schools. Because this is not a law problem. It's a culture problem, and it's a fear problem. Which brings me to your last question. Why did I name the company Courage is a Habit? Because most of the problems that we have in our country today is because we've made fear a habit. So, like I said before, I don't know how to protect my kids from indoctrination. Really? You don't know how? Come on. Of course you do. It's just that you've allowed people to point a finger at your face for too long and call you a name. So before you had kids, you didn't want to put that black sticker up for BLM, but you did it because you didn't want to seem racist. Everybody at your work put pronouns in their bio, and you're like, what the hell is this? And you did it because you didn't want to cause waves. You didn't want to attend that anti-bias, anti-racism training because you've never had a problem ever working with anybody, but you did it anyway. You didn't need to go to that training because you had some critical race theorist come to your work and lecture you guys about unconscious bias, and you sat there anyway and took that survey. But you kept telling yourself, yeah, these are just small things, but when it really counts, I'll stand up. But that's not how habits work. You kept developing a habit of fear. And now you have kids, and they're coming for your kids, and you don't know what to do because you've made fear a habit. And so the reason why I named the organization Courage is a Habit is because thankfully, courage works the other way as well. Every time you want to speak up, every time you want to say, I'm not calling him a him, or I'm not calling him a her. It's a woman. I'm going to call her a woman. I'm going to call her she. I'm going to refer to her as her. Every time your heart's coming out of your chest and you're saying, there's no such thing as a trans child. I'm going to say that. I'm going to post that. I don't care who sees it. Every time you do it, something happens to you inside. You're going to feel the physical sensation of your heart coming out of your chest. But something happens the second and third and fourth time. You won't know it, but it gets a little bit easier. You just don't feel it the second, third, and fourth time. But sometime down the road, if you just keep doing that, maybe the 12th time, maybe the 15th time, I can't tell you when because I don't know everyone's individual makeup. Everybody, obviously their individual makeup is going to be different. But at some point, you're not going to feel that fear anymore because now you've made courage a habit. But that first 6 times, I don't care who you are, you can be poor as hell, you can be rich as hell. That first 6 times it's gonna really suck. You're gonna feel it. But like someone like you, who've already been through the ringer, you've been nationally everywhere, you've gotten the worst messages, the nastiest messages, and you've spoken out, you've worked, you've done great work with Turning Point and a lot of other places. You, as a man, have a very different habit than you were 2 years ago. It doesn't impact you the way it impacts another guy who hasn't opened his mouth to speak up because you make courage a habit. And the thing about courage is that once you make it a habit, nobody is going to tell you to shut up again. It just doesn't happen. Like nobody makes courage a habit and then like 5 years later, they go back to being silent. It's a one-way trip. Because once you make courage a habit, you realize how much fear dominated your life. You will never go back. But that journey to go from fear being a habit and courage being a habit, it's going to be hard. This is why if it was that easy, you and I probably wouldn't be talking, right? Everybody would do it. And so I really wanted to name an organization that every time someone said it, it was a subconscious encouragement. Even when my opponents say it. I hate Courage is a Habit. Courage is a Habit's a hate group. But even when they say it, it gives good parents just a little bit of a reminder that courage is a habit. And so I wanted a name that even if you, the moment you say it, like, hey, did you see the tool? Did you see the latest thing that Courage is a Habit put out? This, every time someone says it, you know, it gives them just a little bit of a subconscious reminder.
Yeah, I mean, it's a spectacular name. I'm super grateful you chose it. I want to jump back in time now and learn a little bit about you, how
Sure.
you grew up, what your life was like, what brought you to caring about this issue so much, having kids,
Mhm.
all these things, and
Yeah.
basically what made you who you are today, where courage is your habit as a man.
Well, yeah, so like a lot of, a lot of immigrants in the country, my great grandfather ran from communism. He ran from communism when he was an old man. And he had two small bakeries,
From where?
just China. And so Mao's communism during the Cultural Revolution. And the people that dragged him out of his bakery and beat him were not soldiers. They were college kids, just like what you're seeing today.
Wow.
Mao's the original, the struggle sessions and, blaming the rich and brainwashing the kids against their families, against tradition, against family values, things like that, right? So this is what we're seeing is just Mao's communism in America. And Xi Fleet wrote a great book called Mao's America that everybody should go read. And she explains exactly what happened in China. And if you're paying attention even a little bit, you'll see the exact same thing happen here. So he ran from communism, and that's how my father got here. He was my great grandfather ran, then he brought my grandfather over, and then my father came over. And so we have the most generous immigration laws in the entire world. There's no country on this planet that or has ever existed that would allow this kind of immigration. And yet we still got these disgusting anti-American Democrats and communists that want us to have unfettered, just people come in. And if you don't, you're some kind of bigot and you're not compassionate. And when we have the most compassionate legal immigration laws that's ever existed, no other country will allow other people come in like this and give them a chance to be a citizen. You can't do it. And they would never allow people to come into this country and tell the people of this country that are born here in our Constitution and our American way of life to say you're wrong. If you try that anywhere, watch what happens. To any other country, if you walk into China and be like, Chinese people need to have Chinese shame, watch what happens. So so when my family came here, my father had always told myself and my siblings that if you are born in America, because we're born here, consider first generation, he would say, if you can't make it in America, you can't make it anywhere. So no blame, no excuses. You were born here. You don't have an English problem. You know the culture. If you can't make it here and other people from other countries come here and start off as, dishwashers and janitors, and they can make a life for themselves, you can't make it here. You can't make it anywhere. He would always tell us that. So, I was born in California. And
okay.
California, as you know, is the way it is. And I didn't want to raise children in California. I was like everybody else. If you asked me before all this, can you name the people on your school board? I'm like, what's a school board? If you tell me, can you name people in your city council? No idea. Do you know how many people on your city council? No. I can tell you who's president. I can tell you who's governor. That's it. Couldn't tell you who's a mayor. Couldn't tell you what a mayor did, what a city council does, what a school board does, how many people, nothing, zero. And then when and you start traveling and you say, California's really fucked up. Why is it so expensive? But everything's worse, but more expensive. So you kind of start there. Of course, California's been dealing with open borders for 20, 25 years. So nothing's new for that. Revolving door criminals, right? Democrats never met a criminal they didn't love, things like that. So Didn't want to raise kids in California, so got to Indiana. Loved Indiana. Moved to Indiana back in April 2020, right when the pandemic, when the COVID, but not because of COVID. We had already planned for that. So when I got to Indiana, everything was great. Love Indiana. Still love Indiana. Indiana's fantastic. Everything is just like, it's like a night and day. Can't even compare in terms of, taxes and small business taxes and regulations and you name it, right? Second Amendment, crime,
Gas
whatever.
prices, I bet.
Gas prices, and just everything. Except one thing, education. K through 12. No different. Intensity,
No different.
yes. Intensity and overtness, yes. But baseline policy, no different. And that's when it dawned on, it really hit. I was very naive because I thought, like everybody else, if you go to a red state, the schools are different. It's not. Because education, K through 12, is dominated by the Department of Education and the federal level, HHS, and all those different things, ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act. So it's governed under one umbrella. And the entire ecosystem of K through 12 is all trained the same way. So yeah, sure, a counselor and a teacher in Indiana or in Montana has a very different upbringing than a teacher in California or New York, but doesn't matter because they're all under that same umbrella to bring this ideology. Then it really hit me that how naive I was that I could run from it. And, my great-grandfather ran from communism, and my family would never in their worst nightmare thought that in just 2 generations, right? My great-grandfather, right? My great-grandfather was 2 generations later, we would be looking down the barrel of the same thing. And so I recognized that if I didn't try in the most tiniest, smallest way to try to fight this at the level that Mao did, which is where he got his seeding, his power is the Red Guard, because they're kids. He built the Red Guard out of children. Then there's no place for my children or your children or anybody's children to go. My great-grandfather and my grandfather and millions and billions of people from Venezuela and Cuba and China and Korea and Russia, they had America to come to. Nobody's sneaking away nobody's leaving America in the middle of the night and sneaking over to Cuba. There's no place for anybody to go. Once America falls, look at the UK, look at Australia, look at what's happened to them. So that's really what it was. It was just a realization that, my great-grandfather ran from communism, and it's, a lot of times it's still hard for me to believe it, that this is where we are now. And that, all our children who are young now can potentially be facing the same thing he did. It's insane.
It's totally insane. That's why we have a duty as parents, as citizens, as people, as adults, to protect the innocent, stand up for this. You mentioned how culture is so important, more important than the executive orders, right? So
Yeah.
I feel, and I genuinely believe this, besides my, hopeless optimism, always seeing the bright side, but even still, I genuinely see and feel that we're winning the culture and that we have an insane amount of momentum on our side. I mean, Bay Area, California, not a person I meet supports mutilating kids, supports keeping secrets from parents, supports guys and girls sports. Not a single person. I'm sure there's a couple out there, but any parent you meet at the park, person you meet at work, church, whatever, they all think it's insane. So I feel like we're winning the culture and that this is somehow going to end in the next 5 to 10 years. I want to know if you think we can actually end this, or if you think we're winning the culture, and how you see that going down.
We'll end the transgender cult. We'll bury it into the Earth's core.
Good.
100%. 100%. It's funny that you talked about California. Not even in California, everybody you meet goes, no, I don't support this. Is insane. On May 16th, we had released a survey. It was an unprecedented survey that we released in Maine. in Maine. And the participants was more Democrats than Republicans or independents, which was interesting. And we asked them a series of questions that our opponents never asked. They're always very dishonest. So, for example, they'll say, do you believe in book banning? So, of course, people go, no, I don't believe in book banning. And then they take that and say,
Manipulating
90% of
language.
parents want to keep all these books, right? They're very dishonest. But you can't, that's a dishonest question. What you should be asking is, do you believe a third grader, fifth grader should be reading obscene pornographic material showing blowjobs and anal sex? Then it's 95%, 90% no, right? So anyway, we released a survey that asked very micro questions, not this like, do you believe children should have their mental health taken care of in school? You know? And so one of the, and the survey came back that was devastating to our opponents. Even in a blue state like Maine, exactly what you said. The majority of people don't want any of this. 70% of people answered they don't want a school-based medical clinic in schools that can do all the pharmaceuticals, the abortion pills, the birth control IUDs, the transgender treatments like a tucking, binding, referring to drugs, write prescription for transgender drugs, all without parental consent. 70% oppose it. 68% oppose keeping secrets from parents. 66% oppose school counselors promoting transgenderism. Now remember, this is in Maine. And so because we asked the question, not, do you want children to feel like they belong? That's a very different question. Do you feel like children should feel safe? That's a different question than saying, do you think schools should keep transgender secrets from parents? Because to these dishonest, bad faith people, keeping transgender secrets from parents is keeping kids safe. And if you don't understand that, you're going to answer the survey and like, yeah, I want kids to feel safe. They should feel safe at school. Not thinking, oh, they mean keeping safe from me as a parent. So we asked these questions, and I'll give you the link. I'll give you the press release and then the link to the survey. And so it's funny that you mentioned that because we just released it on, May 16th. And you're right. The culture, people, I think the culture has always been there. It was just people are afraid to speak up, which goes back to making courage a habit. And hopefully we did the survey to show people you are not in the minority. There's common sense still reigns supreme, but you got to say it out loud. You can't just feel it. You can't just believe it in the quiet of your four walls at home. You got to be able to post so that everybody can see it on your social media. You say it when you're out. There's no such thing as a trans child. I'm not calling you a man. You're a woman. I'm not calling you a woman. You're a man. You're a bigot, transphobe. I don't care. You're a lunatic. I'm not going to let you, I'm going to tell my daughter, you're a woman. You're a man. Until people are brave enough to say that, these surveys are great because it shows how real people feel. But now you got to take those feelings and those thoughts and you got to take action.
But Alvin, how do we get the majority of Americans to find that inner strength and inner courage where they don't have it right now to start speaking what they believe, to start speaking truth, to start fighting, to protect children when obviously way too many people are too scared to do so. And that's been going on for years and years and years. So what is it that's going to help change them, inspire them, find that Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, hero's journey inside themselves to do something? Because I think this is like the war of our lifetime is the war on children right now.
That's right. It's a war of our lifetime. Great question. And I have a very easy, simple answer for you. That's easy to say and hard to do. It's the easiest thing to do when you get it. It's the hardest thing to do when you don't have that habit, right? It's like saying, how do I run a marathon? Well, you got to run, you got to run around the block and you're going to go right for, half a mile is going to kill you. So it's like saying, how do I get Americans to run the marathon, have the stamina? You got to run. You got to speak. How do I get people to speak up? You got to say that first word out. Got to start a little bit. So mentally, here's the answer to your question, because it's a great question. The first thing you have to do is you have to mentally compartmentalize how you define empathy. Far too long in this country, we've made empathy and compassion this high standard. We need to have empathy. We need to have radical empathy, and we need more empathy, and we need leaders with empathy. No, we don't. It is such a misnomer. Empathy is actually a very low value trait. It's actually a very low value trait. And if you hear me say this and you're like, then you're not going to speak up because they're going to weaponize your empathy. So here's how I define empathy. And if you guys can, if people if you're afraid to speak up, if you don't get your mind right here in what I'm going to say, then you'll have a hard time speaking up, because every time you get a little bit of courage, they're going to hit you with that, weaponizing your empathy. So empathy, here's a rule of thumb. It's not 100% rule of thumb, but if you think it this way, it'll be easy for you to compartmentalize. Empathy should be reserved for people that you love and that love you back. Now, is that 100% true? Like, if my neighbor's house burned down, I don't love my neighbor, right? But if his house burned down, do I have sympathy for him, and would I try my best to help him? And, of course I would. So I'm not talking about these these kind of auxiliary circumstances. But to your mind, empathy should be reserved for people that you love and that love you back. So that means that you've got these ideologues going, you need to have more empathy. You go, do I love him? Does he love me back? No, I don't care. You go up to be like, what about these kids that killed themselves? Not my children. I'm protecting my children. Those kids, which is a lie anyway, which is a complete lie. Kids don't kill themselves because they can't take puberty blockers. But whatever problems those kids have, it is their parents' responsibility. So if some kids kill themselves, that is no one's responsibility except the mother and father of that child. Nobody needs to have empathy or compassion. You can feel bad for the family, but that's got nothing to do with how you protect your kids. So until Americans get that, you can call it toxic empathy. There's a book written by Ali Stuckey.
Ali Beth. Right? She's wonderful.
The toxic empathy. But it's written for Christians, because Christians are the absolute worst about that. They get their empathy beaten over their heads all the time. So I'm glad she wrote that book. Sad, that author. He has what is he
Sad,
called?
or however you say it.
Yeah. It's a sad. Yeah, it's he calls it
new
something
Stoicism book. It's like modern Stoicism, right? That's not the name, but that's what it's about.
I think he has something coming out called something. I forgot what it's called. It's called. It's not toxic empathy. That's her book, but it's called suicidal empathy. Suicidal empathy. And but we call it idiot empathy, because it's what it is. It makes you make idiot decisions. And so until we get a handle on that, it's going to be very difficult to speak up. But once you compartmentalize this, speaking up actually becomes kind of a natural thing. I'll give you one more tool that everybody can kind of try to absorb and noodle it in their mind. I recently wrote an article for The Blaze, and it was encouraging people to embrace hate. Now, especially for a lot of people who are Christians or Catholics, it's like, oh my God. And I realized, because we work with so many parents across all 50 states, that one of the things that the transgender cult takes advantage of is, you're hateful. I mean, how many times have you gotten that? It's hate. You're hateful. You're just bringing hate. And good people, they trip all over themselves proving they're not hateful. And my article at The Blaze and our philosophy is, why not? There are a lot of things to hate in this country. Because if you believe in good, then you got to believe in evil, because you can't have summer without winter, and you can't have good without evil. So obviously there are evil in this country. In this world, there's evil. So why can't you hate evil? That's weird to me. There's a lot of things that I hate. So when someone goes, you're hateful, our response is, yeah, we hate everything that you stand for. And when you embrace that, then, we always say reject inclusion and embrace exclusion. When you embrace high boundaries and you embrace exclusion, it's very natural to say, I exclude all these horrible things from my children. And when you try to push it, I hate that. I hate sex trafficking. I hate the transgender cult. I hate the school counselors that try to deem parents unsafe and abusive. I hate the doctors that push cross-sex hormones and puberty blockers, knowing very well what it does to children. I hate the surgeons that does the surgeries. I hate the school boards and the principal associations that allow the boys to take over women's sports. And I hate that that family has sacrificed for many, many years for these women. And now they ended their career. They're sitting in third place, lost to a boy that ranks 253. There's a lot of things that I hate. So there's nothing wrong with saying, yeah, I'm very hateful when it comes to these things. And I'm going to let you know it. Because when you embrace that, they have no power. I say that to these like transgender cultists, these child mutilation advocates, we call them child mutilation advocates. They have nothing they say. They just lose their mind because they can't believe that I have so much courage and I'm so emboldened to say, yeah, I hate everything you stand for. And I'm going to teach other parents to hate you so that we can get you out of schools and away from our children. What's wrong with that? Why are we so allergic to say, I hate these things? And so these are the mental things. So before things can come out of your mouth, you got to get your mind right. Because how you think determines what you say, right? Your thoughts first, and then it comes out of your mouth. And then what you say determines how you behave, how you act. So you can't ask someone to take action if their words are not coming from a place of courage. And your words can't come from a place of courage if your thoughts don't come from a place of courage. You can't be scared in here and then expect to just go up to a school board or a city council or in front of people or just even one person and speak courage when you don't think courage. And so compartmentalizing empathy, understand that empathy should only be a little spotlight. It should only be a tiny spotlight that is reserved for people that you love and they'll love you back. It's not meant to be this gigantic floodlight that you use to make decisions, because that's when people weaponize your empathy. That's not what it's meant for. These big, large decisions that they're trying to get you to do, like men's and women's spaces and locker rooms and sports. They're trying to weaponize your empathy that you should have for your family and your close friends. And so then you got to get your mind right when it comes to this language contamination. Things like hate and empathy and compassion. You got to understand that these are the things you got to get right in your mind. Because if you can't compartmentalize those things, they're going to be able to just take you everywhere, dishonestly. And so those are the two things. And hope that's what I would say. If you're saying how do we get Americans to speak up, I would say you got to get your mind right when it comes to these things like empathy and you're hateful. If you get those two things right, you'll be surprised at how natural it is to start speaking up.
Yeah, once you start speaking truth, your life opens up. It becomes easier and easier. You feel like you have a great purpose. It's fantastic. You meet wonderful people. I mean, you'll just see a series of miracles align in your life over and over.
That's right.
And you said like something like people are weak. Like the weak men thing, I think part of it was like a lack of like meaning or feeling good about themselves. Well, guess what? When you start speaking up, that gives you meaning. You're part of something bigger than yourself. You're part of protecting children. Yeah. What do you think should happen that we both agree that this will end, relatively soon or at some point? What do you think should happen to the people that have, done this great evil to children? The doctors that have cut off body parts of children or sterilized them, or the parents or the teachers that kept secrets from parents, or the counselors that push these kids to do these things, etc. Can we hold them accountable? Should we hold them accountable?
I think anything short of prison time wouldn't be justice. I think it can't be monetary. They can't just lose their license. I think it has to be some sort of prison time, some sort of jail time. There's really no other justice for that, because they participated in the greatest medical fraud that this country's ever seen, like hands down. And I don't call it medical malpractice. The reason why I don't call it medical malpractice is medical malpractice means that an individual broke protocols, established protocols, proven protocols, whether it be scientific or procedural, and then someone died or got hurt. So then, doctors get sued for medical malpractice if they maybe, whether it's the surgeries, they didn't follow protocols, and then someone died or got injured. You cannot say medical malpractice when it comes to the transgender cult because there is no protocols to begin with. The entire thing is fraud. So like if a surgeon gets sued for medical malpractice because he performed open heart surgery wrong, it's not that open heart surgery is wrong. It's just that he did it wrong. There's a procedure to do open heart surgery that's very successful all the time, right? Every day, thousands and tens of thousands of open heart surgery happens every day all around the country. But the transgender treatments, from tucking and binding all the way to surgery, there's no such thing as medical malpractice because there's no protocol to begin with to even do it wrong. It's all wrong. There's no way to do it right.
Yeah.
The whole thing's fraud. And so everybody from WPATH all the way down to the pediatrician that has pronouns and say, we welcome all kids, all of them should go to prison. All of them should go to prison. Now, do I think the school counselors that put them on that path should have the same prison sentence as the surgeons that did it? No. But they should all serve prison time because they collectively, the school counselors, look, the surgeons are not going to schools with a table and a scalpel cutting up kids. The school counselors and teachers got to put them on that path to the hospital. The surgeons are happy to do it, which is why they should have prison time. So, but it's the school counselors and the mental health professionals, the social workers, they're the ones that are driving the kids to the clinic. Figuratively driving them, and then these woke white mothers are literally driving them, But they're the ones that put them on that path. So yeah, they should serve prison time for sure. There's zero basis to it, and we all knew it. And now, of course, with the WPATH leaks, with the CAS report, and then now HHS came out with another report they came out with a great report that's basically like it reflects the CAS report, but they even went into other areas that the CAS report didn't. I read the whole thing. It's excellent. It's excellent, but
Do no harm database. And with all that coming out, how are we not seeing bigger? Aren't these doctors starting to think that they're doing not practicing medicine? I mean,
the Do No Harm database is excellent. The Do No Harm database is excellent by the Do No Harm organization there, and they're great, but that's why.
But most people don't believe it, because I remember talking to you before I went to Berkeley, where we had that crazy kid throw the tomato juice over me and Chloe Cole and stuff.
Right.
And I remember talking to you before about a good strategy for talking to these kids and how to ask them questions as opposed to use their language. Right. And you were very helpful, and I appreciate it. But I remember one of the things is and I had the paper even, and I'd be like, well, that's because they'll say, oh, well, it's like, dude, that hardly ever happens. Come on, people don't regret it, or really, there's just one right there. You could talk to her, or barely anyone does it. And then here's the numbers. I have this database, and they just cognitive dissonance or whatever. They don't believe it.
Well, when you're in Berkeley, they're in college. The brainwashing's done. They're not. I always tell parents, your kids aren't being brainwashed in college. 20 years ago they were, but the brainwashing happens in K through 12. They're not being brainwashed in college. They're being activated in college. The brainwashing is largely done, right? And if it's not 100% done, it's like 90% done. So yeah, college can finish off the last 10, 15%, but mostly they're just activating the kids at that point. They're already Red Guard soldiers when you get to college because K through 12 has done such a great job starting at kindergarten to start that brainwashing. So they'll say it's not happening and it's good it's happening. And what's going to happen, what you're going to start to see a lot of hospitals and doctors start to move away from it because of all the lawsuits and everything. And they're going to try to pretend that they never were for it. You're going to get a lot of I was never for it. And we're going to move away. Even ASCA, even American School Counselor Association, when we start looking at a lot of their, because, we always infiltrate their events and things and their webinars, they've stopped talking about the transgenderism. They're they're trying to move away from that and talk about college readiness and things like that. That sounds good, but it's still DEI, but they're just, couching it under like college readiness and career readiness and getting kids ready. And so they're trying to move away from the transgender because they see not the stupid low level counselor. I'm talking about the people who are high up. They see the writing on the wall. So they're trying to distance themselves. But it's like COVID. Ever seen COVID? Oh, there's no lockdown. There was no lockdown. We didn't force.
Oh, there was no
anybody to
people
do
in
that.
California getting arrested for surfing?
Yeah. It's like, not never. No, nobody had to take the vax. There was nobody had to take the vax. Nobody forced anyone to take the vax. So you're going to get a lot of that. But here's the problem. And this is sad. I hate that this is true. And you know it, right? I know that you know it, but you can't see COVID vax damage because people drop dead and you're like, well, I guess it could, like you could say, well, it could be this other thing. It's like, yeah, 22-year-old athletes are dropping dead because that's so common, right? But you can't see it. Unfortunately, with the transgender cult, you're going to see the damage. It'll be like, my co-founder, Jennifer said that it'll be kind of like after the Vietnam War and you saw these people come back with no limbs and no eyes. You can't unsee and pretend you don't see the horrors of war when you see your soldiers come back like that. Sadly, I think it's going to be the same way with the transgender cult. You're going to get these kids who are 13, 14 now, when they're 24, 25, we're going to see people walking around looking really fucked up, just really screwed up.
Yeah.
And they're going to look, their hair, everything is just, and you're going to go, that was a kid from the back, then those 10, that 10-year mark before we buried the transgender cult. And you can't unsee it. You're not going to, and that's where I think a lot of the teachers and counselors and surgeons and everybody, they're going to have a really hard time. Like the COVID people, I don't know. I never asked nobody ever asked you for the COVID to say to take the COVID vax. When they go to court and they're getting sued, the prosecution is going to be able to trot all these people out and go, you did this. And the jury's going to see it. Public opinion is going to see it, and you can't unsee it. And, people who are not like you and me, who don't even understand this is happening, they're going to go, how did we let this happen? And, yeah, it's going to be, they're not going to be able to walk away from it because there's going to be too many of these kids that are looking just screwed up. And there's going to be a high rate of suicide, too. And sadly, when they hit that 25, 26 and their brain starts to, come into line as an adult, they're going to go, I had no adult in my life that stopped me from doing this.
Right.
None of the adults in my life stopped me from doing this. In fact, a lot of the adults encouraged me to do it and then say, you need to listen to children. Those statements that you and I hear today, listen to you. Believe your child. Believe children when they tell you who they are. When those lines are being trotted out in court, whether it's the lawsuit or public opinion, it's going to sound. It's just going to be. People are going to go, like, how can anyone would have fallen for that? It's better to have a dead daughter than a live, right? You better have a live son than a dead daughter. When you trot these emotional blackmail lines out, they're going to go, how in the hell did anybody ever believe all that?
Yeah, it's a terrible tragedy, but we're going to win it. I want you to give us your last final thoughts, words of wisdom to close us out here. Anything you want to say, you can say whatever you want. And I
hope, I feel kind of bad because my gardener's out there mowing. And
I can hear it a little bit.
You hear a little bit? I'm sorry. I could see from
good.
the thing that it's. But anyway, so yeah, the last thing if you don't stand up for your children today, they will live on their knees tomorrow. However hard and however scared you are about speaking up, I can't speak up because insert your excuse. I don't, whatever. And it's not, I'm not saying it's an invalid excuse, but if you go, I can't say that. I can't speak up at work or my neighbors or my friends or whatever you say, I can't say that because of X. I want you to know that you're probably right, and then think how much harder it would be for your children. If you go, I can't say, I'm not going to put pronouns at work because they're going to fire me. They're going to do this. They're going to do this. If that's true today, think about what kind of tyrannical country and government your children are going to grow under. Because you have to put pronouns in your bio today, or you're going to get a talking to, or get fired, or get bullied at work. That means your children, if they can't say a man can get pregnant, will not be able to go to the grocery store. Won't get a bank account. Can't get a loan. You see, if you do not stand up for your children today, they will live on their knees tomorrow. So for those of you who are afraid to speak up now, I want you to, I'm not going to tell you your fears are unfounded. I'm going to tell you you're right. You're right. And if that's true, think about the kind of world your children are going to grow up if this is what you're afraid of now. So you can't kick that can down the road. You can't kick that can down the road. You got to take the pain now for your kids. Because if you don't, what you're saying is, I'm going to give them the pain, and they will have a much harder time fighting. This isn't I shouldn't say anything, but I hope I raise my kids strong so that they can fight. I've heard parents say that. Like, what?
Wow.
Are you literally saying you don't want to take the pain, but hopefully you're too weak today, you're too scared today, but you're hoping that you can raise brave and strong kids so that they can fight the fight you can't fight? Think about how stupid that is. What kind of logic that is. How are you going to raise kids to fight when you can't fight?
Right.
Number one, that's not going to be possible. But what you're saying is, I'd rather my kids.
It's so insane. All throughout history, older people have stepped up to sacrifice for the younger generations. Love is sacrifice. If not you, who? If not now, when? I mean, this is like, it's just so insane to me that any parent doesn't feel a duty. I think most parents would at least say they love their kids unconditionally. I would take a bullet for them and no hesitation, which I would for Sawyer, no doubt.
Of course.
Which is why I don't understand how people aren't making courage a habit.
He said, I take my bullet for my kid. I take a bullet for my children. I rush into a burning building with no care about my own life to save them. But I won't be called bigot, transphobe, and hateful for them. What?
Insane.
And that's the power of fear. It's not logical. Fear is not logical. But that's the power of fear. And when you make it a habit, you start to say nonsense like, I hope I raise strong enough kids to fight I can't fight. It's like, that's fear talking. But
the power of bravery is even stronger.
But the power of courage is even stronger, because once you have it, there's no wall you won't be able to knock down. You don't need a group. You don't need a podcast or Courage is a Habit, or you don't need that. You don't need anything. You know how to stand up for your kids. And that's what I hope. I hope for Courage is a Habit that one day we won't be needed. That's really what it is. Because I think you and I should be doing something else. We shouldn't be. We're here because I believe people like you and me it's almost like we're a immune system of the country. We're like the antivirus immune system, stepping up because we don't have enough antibodies. Because it shouldn't be this way. It shouldn't be just a small group of people standing up for a travesty that's evil, that parents are afraid to speak up for their kids. And so, no, I believe you. I agree with you that we're going to end this cult. We're going to bury it into the earth's core. And I hope we have enough today. I hope we have enough content, because, it's not like before where you read it in books and maybe some magazines, but we have so much video and, our phones and everything, that it serves as a beacon, because it's always going to come back. Evil never dies, right? Communism will always try, and separating kids from their parents. blaming rich people and whatever people. It's just always going to be. But I hope that in this last 10 years, we've have enough content now that future generations, when this transgenderism, this sexualizing kids and separating from their parents, when it raises its ugly head again, I hope there are people that can dig up the things that we've done and say, "Oh, I recognize this. Language contamination, weaponizing empathy, all that stuff. It's the same. They always have to take that path. You know, they might not call it empathy. They might call it another word, but it'll always be the same thing. It'll always be the same thing. Shame. You know.
Yeah, evil will always try, but good will always triumph.
Yep. But it's the question of how
Alvin
many
Lui,
kids are going to lose before.
it's gonna be way too many, to be honest with
Too
you.
many. Yep.
One's too many. So,
Too many.
but thank you so much, man. You're making a big difference. You're able to explain this stuff so well, and I just really respect and admire you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. What you've done inspired a lot of people, a lot of parents, a lot of men, a lot of fathers, husbands to speak up. And I appreciate you. I have such a great respect for you, what you've been through, the fire you have, and I'm glad that your story is ending well. And I know you'll continue to be in this fight and spread courage to other people that don't quite have it yet.
Yeah, I'm one of the lucky ones, but more and more people are rising up. We're gonna end this. We're gonna win. Courage is a
Absolutely.
habit.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, brother.
Thanks, man.